Welcome back to round 2 of the 2017 Florida Regional Championships. I'm still Gabby Snyder.
I'm still Adam Dorricott. I haven't changed.
Maybe we'll switch sides next round to mix it up. We're here with a pretty hype match. Michael Daly versus Adib. I forget his last name.
Alam.
Adib Alam.
He's recently moved down to Florida, so we're claiming him as one of our own. Obviously, he wasn't living with us for his large national runs in 2014, but we are now claiming him. So now he's a Florida player,
that works.
and we now have a national finalist in our midst. So he's now ours. That's unfortunate, but I'm quite excited to see him play. I've seen him play locally a little bit. We're keeping on that kind of theme of somebody from out of town versus somebody from in of town, and I'm definitely excited to see. I've seen Adib go through a number of teams, and it's just been a fun time. So
yeah, so I'm actually really hyped right now. Michael Bailey, his team, we actually have it on this table right here. I am so excited. Like, I can tell that he's really been training hard. He's been trying to make the metagame calls, trying to run something I think that on paper looks like it is very interesting. So what kind of teams does Adib usually play?
We've seen Adib play around with the Yveltal, again, that Florida theme of the Yveltal. The last outing we saw locally, he was playing the Yveltal and the Groudon, rather than the Yveltal and the Kyogre we saw from Pablo in the last round. So he's been playing around with that, bringing him good success at the local tournaments, the small ones, the Premier Challenges. He had some good runs at mid-season showdowns with it last year. Obviously, we've not rotated the format, so we're still playing the fated 2016 format, which I know everyone loves at home.
Oh, definitely.
But having a little peep at Michael's team right now, I mean, I'm just going to say I'm excited. There's one
How
Pokemon.
How could you not be excited?
There's one Pokemon in here, and I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but it is a little bit tasty. I had a little go with it myself last year when I was still playing, and I had good fun with it, but I'm looking forward to seeing it on stream and seeing what it does, actually, seeing what it brings to the match, and if it really throws Adib off, perhaps, because it's not something most people practice for, so if they're not comfortable playing against it, they maybe forget a move it has. I mean, it could really throw the match, and if you can bring it out in game 1, catch somebody off guard, then you've got that momentum going into game 2 and 3, even if it isn't the strongest pick.
Definitely, and when we're looking at a metagame where like everybody's expecting to see the same 6 Pokemon pretty much throughout every single round, like having something that just completely catches your opponent off guard really could be the key to just completely, throwing the momentum in your favor and winning the match. So I think this team is going to throw... I mean, it would throw me off guard a lot if I were playing it, so...
I think we're going to see some players to make top cut today with something a little bit weird and wonderful.
I hope so. I really hope so.
We saw Arizona, it was very similar kind of stuff. We saw those 2 archetypes really emerge, and obviously I think they'll dominate the top cut here today, but I just think there's room. I have a feeling, because we're in Florida, that we're going to see 1 or 2 things that are a little bit different, and maybe this could be the team to do it. Obviously, they're both on a 1-0 record, getting off to the perfect start in the tournament. So, it's 1 in 1 game. Why can't it win him 2, 3, 4, 5? That's all I can say, and I'm just excited to see it in action.
I am so excited, and it looks like players are entering team preview. So we have Adib up on the top screen, Salamence, Bronzong, Kyogre, Yveltal, so you were right there, Liepard and Gengar versus, okay, I'm so excited for this, Giratina O, Kyogre, Whimsicott, I love, Kangaskhan, Gengar, and Bronzong. So this matchup is just nuts. I'm so excited for this.
There is so much tomfoolery to come out from both sides of the table.
I know.
I mean, we see Adib's team. We've got the Yveltal, which was very commonly paired with the Liepard actually when people started to play with it. A Liepard with the prankster ability, able to throw out annoying things such as Swagger. It can actually benefit from the Dark Aura itself with the foul play. So it can not only assist the Yveltal, it can then do the damage itself. Obviously Gengar I think is a fun Pokemon right now, especially with the way we saw it come out at Worlds and really make a mark, so I'm excited to see that. But let's get to the real interest on this team.
Yes, let's
pop
do
over
it.
briefly before we get into game for the Giratina origin. Now, it was really popular before. Both the Giratina forms are popular in the last format we had in this kind of style in 2010. We saw some players go for the bulkier version and some people go for the more aggressive version. So it's got a ton of options in its move pool as well. It has so many weird and wonderful moves. My most favorite move on it is Shadow Force. Because of the mind games it forces your opponent to play. Shadow Force, of course, make you disappear from the field, then come back the next turn to attack, and it can't be protected. It breaks the protect in the same way a Feint would, so smart play with the Shadow Force, I think, could really win somebody the game, because if they're playing defensively, you can punish them.
Yes, alright, here it is. Whimsicott Kangaskhan on Michael's side of the field against Liepard and Yveltal. I love this matchup. This is beautiful.
Yeah, I do like both sides bringing up prankster Pokemon. Obviously, a lot of people discuss prankster, and some say they love it, some say they hate it. But in general, I think it's healthy, and it provides a very interesting way to support your team. Michael keeping it quite safe right now as such, with Kangaskhan able to fake out and then Whimsicott able to do its own thing, be it setting up Tailwind, setting up Trick Room, which a number of people forget it has. It's pretty much going to be able to do anything, and Adib, probably a little bit concerned about that, just starts the turn off switching.
Yeah, we're going to see that Yveltal switch out for a Salamence. You know, it's going to intimidate that Kangaskhan, which will be a huge help. It'll also save that Yveltal for later. You know, sometimes Whimsicott in this format like to carry something like Moonblast, which will deal a significant amount of damage, despite the fact that Whimsicott isn't really known for its attacking ability. We're going to see it protect this turn, also kind of a unique move. Fake out from that Liepard into the protect on Whimsicott. Kangaskhan not only Mega Evolving this turn, but also going straight for that power-up punch. So it'll cancel out that Intimidate and bring it to +1 attack.
Yeah, I really like that turn from Michael. Obviously, there was a number of ways that Fake Out could be traded that turn, but instead of that, he protects the Whimsicott, eats up the Fake Out with the Protect, and then he manages to get the Power Up punch out. So now the onus really is on Adib to get rid of the Kangaskhan before it does huge damage with the boosted attack stat. Obviously, a Vettel, if it's carrying Foul Play, is going to be able to capitalize on that, but it's not on the field right now. So it is only at +1 because I think Adib made the safe move there. He brings in Salamence to get the Intimidate down, but Michael kind of read that. He knew that was going to happen and goes, okay, I'm going to get my attack back up. Only going to get it up one stage, but now the Kangaskhan's in a very solid position, and the Salamence hasn't Mega Evolved yet, so the Kangaskhan's going to be very, very pacey, potentially able to speed tie with it and do more damage.
We're going to see Mega Kangaskhan switch out, and there it is. There's the Giratina in its place. It's beautiful. We're going to see that Salamence Mega Evolve this turn, so it's going to get a nice attack boost from its Aerialate ability. Any normal type attacks will not only have their base power boosted, but they'll also get the same type of attack bonus from Flying type. Whimsicott going for a Safeguard and Foul Play from that Liepard into the Giratina. It's going to deal a massive amount of damage, but it still hangs on with just a little bit of HP, and Double Edge, though, into the knockout.
Well, it hit field, and it didn't get to do much. I think Adib, showing how scared he was of that Kangaskhan there, going for the Foul Play to punish the fact it had a boosted attack stat, and just throwing the Double Edge down just to make sure it rounded out the knockout there. So something was going to get knocked out in that turn. It's unlikely the Kangaskhan had Protect, so he does decide to switch it, and of course, usually Double Edge wouldn't connect with the Giratina. Aerialate allows it to connect, and unfortunately we don't see anything from Giratina this game, so maybe not the best pick actually against the Dibs team, with both the Liepard able to do huge damage with Foul Play as we saw, and of course a Vettel likely able to do huge damage too. Maybe, as much as we want to see it, Giratina's not the way to play out the rest of this game.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that given that we saw that Whimsicott go for a Safeguard this turn, I think Michael was anticipating a little bit more, maybe like Swagger or Thunderwave antics from that Liepard. It's good information for him going into Game 2 that Adib does have that just plain out offensive option, and especially when you pair it with Yveltal's ability to boost Dark type attacks, it certainly makes Foul Play nothing to shake the stick at.
Yeah, and I do like the play from Michael actually to Safeguard. It's a very smart, very safe play, especially with Liepard on the field. It's well known for being able to swagger and cause all kinds of disruption, so a very safe play from Michael. He does get Safeguard in play now, but of course Adib punishes that. I feel like Adib read that turn very, very well. Obviously Adib has a good knowledge of what Whimsicott can do for Michael's team, so he does manage to get something out of that turn by taking the knockout and not fall for the tricks of the Whimsicott. So be interesting to see. We've seen 2 moves from the Whimsicott now, see what the other 2 are and how they can perhaps swing this game back in Michael's favor.
We're going to see that Salamence switch out for Kyogre in its place, also going to set up the rain, so we're definitely going to see lots of rain this game. Big question is, what is Whimsicott going to do this turn? What is that Liepard going to do? We see Kyogre Protect on Michael's side of the field. Whimsicott setting up Tailwind, so ensuring that his Kyogre will be faster than Adib's Kyogre, and possibly even that Liepard who opts for a taunt into Whimsicott to potentially stop it from using any special attacks this turn. We do not see the Mental Herb, so that taunt's going to stick.
Yeah, that taunt's going to stick, and that limits Whimsicott now to just one move. One move that we don't know what it is, but obviously the other three are all unavailable right now. So that Whimsicott's pretty much available to be knocked out, I feel, at Adib's leisure. But he did get the Tailwind up, so Michael's Kyogre, as we can see from the hit point stat, has been trained to be a little bit bulkier, probably a little bit slower, but it does have the Tailwind up, so now it's both bulky, it's fast as such, and it's probably quite offensive. It may be able to pick up a nice knockout here, and you know, we'll see how he goes from there.
We're going to see the Swagger into the Kyogre, so it's going to boost its attack again because of that safeguard. We will not see any confusion. Whimsicott going for a Moonblast into the Liepard slot, which should pick up the knockout. So we're not going to see any more Liepard antics this game, unfortunately. Kyogre going for a Thunder into Adib's Kyogre. It usually does about half damage depending on how that Kyogre is trained. That is what we see now. And we see it return a Thunder into Michael's Kyogre. So again, we'll probably see around half damage barring a critical hit.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of very interesting things to note on that turn. At the beginning of the turn, obviously, we do see the Swagger come out from Adib into the Safeguard on Michael's side of the field. He's not actually looking for the confusion. What he's looking to do is set himself up for the foul play this turn. So maybe Adib will be able to cash in. But I do find it very interesting and good information that both players now have, is that both Kyogres are carrying Thunder. We do see Thunder a very hit and miss if it comes on the Kyogre. Some people love it, some people hate it. Personally, I think it's a great move, and obviously it has the chance to paralyze as well, so if maybe one of them could get the paralysis in here. Both of Adib's Pokemon right now are weak to Thunder. If they could grab the paralysis, when the Tailwind expires, he's still in a good position to push on. I feel like the next couple of turns will be really essential for either player to eke out the win.
Definitely. Yveltal going for a Sucker Punch into Whimsicott, who then returns a Moonblast. Let's see how much damage it's going to do. It does a significant amount, and it also gets a special attack drop, which could be vital depending on what other moves that Yveltal has. We do see that it's holding a Citrus Berry, so it will be able to regain some of its health back. Kyogre going for the Thunder also into Yveltal, so it seems like Michael thinks Yveltal's the threat right now. Picks up that knockout quite easily, and it's all up to Adib's Kyogre here to do some damage. We see it go for a Ice Beam into the Whimsicott, and it does pick up that knockout.
I think it's very interesting there to see which threat they each considered they needed to focus down on. Obviously, Adib knew it was unlikely that Yveltal was going to be able to get any moves. Also, it does go for a Sucker Punch, does a little bit of damage to the Whimsicott, maybe breaking a Focus Sash if that's what it's carrying. But then Michael is pretty much free to hit the Yveltal twice with both a Thunder, the Tailwind coming in good there, meaning that he is able to Thunder before the Yveltal can do anything to his Kyogre. So with the combination of the Thunder and the Moonblast, he gets rid of a restricted Pokemon on Adib's side of the field, while Adib gets rid of a non-restricted and a non-Mega. So now we see both of these trainers, down to their last two, they've got Kyogres at pretty much identical health, depending on how they train their Pokemon, and then they've each got their Mega Pokemon on the field as well. So it'll be interesting to see which of them can eke out a win based on the Mega that they brought with them.
Yeah, we're going to see Salamence protect this turn. It's likely we do see the Kyogre protect as well, so this is the last turn of Tailwind, so Adib is definitely attempting to stall that out. Kangaskhan going for a Double Edge into the Kyogre slot, and Kyogre going for an Ice Beam into that Salamence. And worth noting, we also saw the end of Safeguard.
Yeah, all of Michael's setup there ends on one turn. I feel like he's got himself in a good position coming into this point, but now there's going to be a lot more speed ties. Of course, that Salamence is in a very, very strong position. He really needed to get rid of that Salamence before the Tailwind expired, so Kyogre's a little bit under pressure now. We see a lot. People, even though the Salamence is exceptionally weak to the Ice Beams that come out of Kyogre, once you've got the Kyogre weakened, you can usually pick it off with a Double Edge. So without Kangaskhan able to fake out, it's going to be quite hard to stop that Salamence. Be interesting to see if maybe they just exchange the Kyogres, or what's going on here.
Alright, so Kyogre going for a double protect on Adib's side of the field. It fails. Kyogre protecting on Michael's side of the field. Double edge from that Salamence attacking the Kangaskhan, but it survives with just a little bit of HP. Double edge from Kangaskhan now going into what I can only assume is the Kyogre for the knockout.
Yeah, it's a really good turn. Both players know that they need their Mega to knock out the Kyogre. They both flip the coin, they both go for that double protect, which is a pretty like hard move. Obviously it's a completely random chance, but the bravest players go for it, and the bravest players sometimes get it really when they need it. So I feel Michael put himself in a really good position. I wouldn't count anything out though. Obviously there is the potential Hyper Voice here, We don't see it. We do see the double edge though.
Yeah, double edge into the Kyogre for the knockout. So it's this Kangaskhan has one attempt here to get the knockout on that Salamence, and if it goes for a double edge, we could see the recoil damage knock itself out. So it all comes down to this move, and it does. Kangaskhan is able to pick up the knockout on Salamence. Game 1 is over, and Michael Bailey takes it. That was so close.
Yeah, I really like that. The end sequence of that game. Obviously, the double protect not coming off for Adib, and it came off for Michael and managed to pay dividends. One thing interesting to note about the end of that game is that we didn't see the hyper voice coming out of Adib's Salamence. If he had the hyper voice, he'd have been able to maybe throw it down and take a double knockout there. So interesting to note. Does he have it? Does he not? I feel like he was in trouble anyway, especially because of the turn where Michael did get the double protect. But, maybe he's just playing a mind game, maybe he doesn't want to show it, maybe the same way we have, he wants Michael to think, oh, he doesn't have it. So, I like the turn, I like what Adib tried to do there, set up with the swagger, even though it didn't get the confusion. Definitely tried to set himself up for a couple of turns ahead, but Michael was pretty much free in the early game to do what he wanted with moves such as getting the tailwind, getting the safeguard. So I think Adib may have to stop that and then play his game if he wants to win.
Yeah, so both trainers not taking any time here. We're actually, I believe they were only on team preview for like 10 or 20 seconds. So clearly ending game 1 with an exact game plan of what they want to do for game 2. So let's just jump right into this. Giratina Kangaskhan lead on Michael's side of the field. So maybe, hopefully we'll get to see that Giratina do a little bit more work this game into a Liepard and Gengar combo on Adib's side of the field.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough in this matchup again for Giratina to do anything. Obviously, we did see the huge amount of damage that Liepard does to it with foul play. Gengar does have the option, of course, to be carrying Shadow Ball, which is going to do significant damage as well. So it's going to be really hard, I think, for Giratina to do its work here. It could be carrying some sort of cheeky item that does allow it to make the bigger plays, but it's up to Kangaskhan to get it through these early turns. And although Kangaskhan can fake out, it is of course going to be going after the Liepard. Liepard's naturally quicker than Kangaskhan's, so Kangaskhan usually pretty good to support, but Adib's pairing here really put pressure on. He might have to look potentially to throw some sucker punches at the Gengar and try and stop it that way.
We're going to see Gengar Mega Evolve this turn, so, Kangaskhan on Michael's side of the field will not be able to switch out thanks to its Shadow Tag ability, but Giratina will still be free to move around because it is a Ghost type, and being Ghost type negates that ability. Kangaskhan also going for the Mega Evolution this turn. We'll have to see if we see another Sucker Punch. Instead, we see Will-O-Wisp from that Gengar into the Kangaskhan, so with that burn, its attacking ability will be significantly weakened. Another Foul Play into the Giratina. So again, it misses the knockout, but it deals a massive amount of damage. Double edge from that Kangaskhan into the Liepard. Thanks to the burn, it's not going to deal as much damage, but Giratina certainly has the opportunity here to knock it out, depending on what Michael decided to do. But instead, we get to see its signature move, that Shadow Force, removing it from the field and allowing it to attack pretty much either of these Pokemon on the field next turn, regardless of Protect.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Adib knows that Shadow Force is going to hit him next turn, so he did get a lot that turn. He did, of course, get the burn on the Kangaskhan, didn't get the knockout on Giratina. Giratina was able to vanish instantly, and it'll be interesting to see if Adib has any kind of switch that can really capitalize on where the Shadow Force is targeting. Obviously, Michael picked that last turn, so interesting to see how that plays out. And we see Gengar going for the Substitute, a pretty new move we see on a Gengar there.
Yeah, Gengar's Substitute will maybe help it not take damage this turn. A double edge into the Gengar slot, interestingly enough, from that Mega Kangaskhan. It could have been a misclick. There's the Shadow Force. It does not deal any damage to Gengar. Instead, that Substitute will fade, and it's left pretty much unscathed.
Yeah, I think not such a strong turn there from Michael. He was thinking that Adib didn't have the answer to Shadow Force and was going to switch, so what he went for there, it looks a little nutty that he tried to double edge a Gengar, but what he actually did was trying to predict the switch there and just double edge into that slot. I think he'd have been a little bit safer per turns, throwing a double edge at the Liepard and just getting it off the field. So
But, instead we're going to see him try and remove the Liepard from this field with a Sucker Punch. Despite getting a crit on the first hit, it will not deal enough damage. Gengar going for a second Substitute. So if Giratina doesn't break it this turn, that could be a huge advantage for Adib going into next turn. And we do see that Foul Play onto the Giratina for the knockout.
yeah, Giratina again not able to do much. Obviously Adib showing off that little trick that he's got in the Substitute on Gengar, which has managed to keep him safe from Shadow Force now. Be interested to see if he keeps that Substitute up for a long time. We do see Kangaskhan fall to the burn, so that burn on turn 1 not only did it pay dividends in Lipard didn't get knocked out? It did, of course, slowly but surely manage to get the knockout without him having to throw any more offensive pressure in that slot.
Yeah, we're going to see that Kyogre and Whimsicott take the field as Michael's last 2 Pokemon in this Game 2 of Round 2 of this battle. So I'm excited to see maybe if Whimsicott can sort of stall out Liepard again like it did last game, though that Gengar being behind the substitute is definitely still going to be a problem for the Kyogre.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough for Michael now. I mean, giving up those 2, and they both have very good offensive pressure on outside the field. It's going to be really hard for him to come back. Kyogre, of course, not able to do anything super effective damage to either of his 2. Obviously, it can bring a lot of damage. It'd be interesting to see, you know, what Whimsicott does if it goes offensive, and it doesn't. It just goes for the safeguard here.
Yeah, we see that safeguard, but it seems like it was a good call. We're going to see that Liepard swagger the Kyogre, so again, we'll see that attack boost, but we will not see the confusion, though this could also be set up for that Yveltal if Adib decided to bring it in the back. Sludge Bomb from Gengar, bringing Whimsicott down to its focus sash. A very common item on Whimsicott, so it's nice to have that confirmed going into Game 3, if that's where we end up. And Ice Beam from Kyogre into the Gengar substitute, it will break it.
Yeah, he does get the Gengar substitute there, but Adib, even though he didn't get any knockouts, got a lot of what he wanted that turn. Getting that +2 attack onto the Kyogre is really good, and now he's going to have the Liepard and probably the Yveltal later in the game to come in and knock it out. So he's in a very good position. And I think the pressure's been kept up. Obviously, Michael could fire back with maybe an Origin Pulse, get a double knockout. You know, it's not quite over, but he's going to need a lot more from the Whimsicott before he can win this game.
Yeah, we do see Whimsicott going for Tailwind, which I think it was his best option at this point in time. Sludge Bomb for the knockout onto Whimsicott. So we're going to see Kyogre be able to attack once next turn, it looks like, provided this +2 Foul Play does not knock it out. We do see the Foul Play connect, and will it do enough damage? It does not. We see an Origin Pulse from Kyogre into, I believe, both the Gengar and the Liepard for a double knockout on a deep side of the field.
Yeah, that's actually what Michael needed there to bring this game back to 2-1, of course. I think maybe protecting while the Tailwind got set up could have been a little bit safer. But there is a way out for him here, at least. He's managed to get his last 2 on the field, but we do see Adib cashing in on that swagger right there. He manages to do huge amounts of damage without Dark Aura on the field, and coming from a Liepard, which usually doesn't have that much investment. Obviously, it does come. Uses the Foul Play from Kyogre, and does get to still do huge damage. With Dark Aura, it could have potentially been even worse, so Michael let off a little bit there.
Yeah, and going off like information we learned in Game 1 of this match, you know, we know that Kyogre carries Thunder. We know it deals about half health of damage to Michael's Kyogre. So his win condition right now, unfortunately, I believe, is to knock out the Kyogre this turn, or somehow hope that he doesn't have to take 2 attacks and he just picks the right Pokemon that will target the Kyogre and knocks it out beforehand. So I don't think it's looking too favorable for him right now, but you know, he's certainly got a lot of good information from that substitute on that Gengar, and I think going into Game 3, he'll be in a really good position to maybe play the mind games a little bit more and hopefully stop Gengar from completely stalling out his team.
Yeah, I think Game 3 is going to be a more drawn-out battle. I think there's definitely adaptations that both players need to make. I think Adib made the right adaptation for Game 2, but Michael still has a lot known from Game 1 about what it can do. He does go for the Protect here, just to see what information he can get about that Yveltal.
Yeah, and you know, when you're in such a close match, like Game 1 was pretty close, Game 2, still pretty close when you consider it. Sometimes going for that last Protect, going in to Game 3, just to have that information to know, okay, my opponent has Sucker Punch, my opponent still decided to use Thunder, just can kind of confirm what you're thinking, especially, you know, when there's so much on the line, you know, knowing that you can only lose 1 or 2 times, you really need every bit of information you can
yeah,
in these
and
games.
I think it's been a really good gathering information. I mean, you know, we used to only talk about it when we got to Top Cut, and there was obviously the players, you'd be able to maybe go and look at their team, talk to some friends and gather some information in that way, but he's just not doing it. He's buying more time here, getting that information, and, you know, while we play best of 3 Swiss now, every round, you can win every round by winning the information game.
Yeah, I mean, part of me can't help but wonder if he's just trying to jokingly go for a Protect stall until he stalls out the power points or something of that Yveltal, or possibly even the Kyogre.
He's got a long way to go.
He has a long way to go, but I mean, I've seen crazier things happen with the RNG. But a crit on the Thunder from Adib's Kyogre, sealing up Game 2, and we will be going into Game 3 momentarily.
Yeah, and I love the way Adib adapted to that game. he led with two things, his Mega Pokemon and a very supportive Pokemon. But those were enough to put huge pressure on, obviously, Michael's side of the field, and they put pressure on his Mega and his Restricted. So when you kind of match up these teams, you know, the way people bring their teams, it's usually 2 Restricteds, 1 Mega, 1 supporting. So if you can trade, essentially, one of your non-Megas or one of your Megas for a Restricted, you know, as long as you're sort of trading up, I think you're doing very well. And Adib's trade in the early part of that game was fantastic. He got rid of Michael's Restricted in Giratina and just managed to keep powering through. So I'm going to be concerned to see if Michael brings Giratina in Game 3. Obviously, we saw it switch it in Game 1 and get punished for it. And in Game 2, we just saw it throw out 1 Shadow Force, which got blocked by a substitute. So not sure if that's the pick. Maybe see if he switches it up and brings a Mega Gengar as his Ghost type. This isn't 2012, unfortunately, so I doubt we're going to see double Ghost, which was a bit of an old school lead. But be interested to see if he changes it. I'd definitely like to see some changes from Michael, though. That's how I feel going into Game 3.
Yeah, I think he needs to adapt. I'm not sure, but you know, we did see both trainers take such little time at team preview last game. Part of me wonders if maybe he just had that momentum going from Game 1 and just thought, I know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna do what I think is best and not really think about it. And sometimes that can really hurt players. Especially,
I think it can help and hinder. You know, sometimes
yeah, that's very
you win
true.
Game 1, you feel great, you just power on through to Game 2, win Game 2, and you're out onto your lunch break. Other times, of course, you know, you struggle a little bit going through the games, and it doesn't end up so hot. You know, you go into Game 2 a little bit too brash and get punished. So we do see, again, the leads changing for Michael, but Adib sticking with his winning leads.
Yeah, so Gengar, Liepard from Adib, and Michael leading that Kangaskhan and Whimsicott combo. So I'm really excited to see how these match up.
Yeah, obviously both trainers have bought their winning lead from their game here. We do, obviously, Kangaskhan again threatened by the Will-O-Wisp, so it might not want to stay in the field and get Will-O-Wisp so much, but I don't think there's a safe switch really from Michael's side of the field. Whimsicott able to, you know, get up a Tailwind, get up its Safeguard, and do very similarly to what it did in Game 1, was set things up for the rest of Michael's team to come through and win.
Yeah, Kangaskhan switching out, not wanting to play any sort of risks with that Will-O-Wisp, and in its place, we're going to see Kyogre. So Kyogre's a very safe Pokemon to burn. While it doesn't appreciate the drop in HP every turn, you know, it's not going to take any sort of weakened attack from having been burned. So that was certainly a great switch by Michael, if that's what Adib decided to play for. We are going to see the Gengar Mega Evolve once again. So unfortunately for Michael, that means he won't be able to switch around much next turn because of that Shadow Tag ability. But, you know, with Whimsicott protecting this turn, I don't know. I'm not really sure what to expect. Fake out from that Liepard into the Whimsicott, and then Will-O-Wisp into the Kyogre.
Yeah, it's not the worst Pokemon to be burned, as you were saying. Obviously, the chip damage every turn it's a large amount, really. And, you know, over a few turns, you can really end up changing your damage calculations and getting knocked out much sooner than you think. But at least it's not hindering his offensive power. I think a very safe turn from Adib there. You know, he doesn't want to get Safeguard up on Michael's side of the field, so he does throw the fake out towards the Whimsicott. He does want to be able to get the burn off, so he gets it off before Safeguard gets up, and now the burn's out. Essentially, it might be a little more prudent of Michael to throw up the Tailwind and then get the Safeguard in for later. But we have of course, seen the way Adib plays around the Kyogre, and having the burn reducing his attack is going to make it a little bit harder based on, you know, he's been trying to knock it out with foul play. It's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I think one thing that puts Adib in a little bit of favor is that if Michael decides to set up this turn, that basically gives him a free turn to substitute on Gengar, so we'll have to see if that's what he does. We do see Whimsicott go for the Tailwind setup, and we do see Gengar get that substitute up as well. So if Kyogre didn't double target here, that could put, you know, Adib in a much favorable position going into the next turn. Foul Play gets a crit, and Gengar dodges the Origin Pulse, so it is able to keep its substitute for next turn, which is huge. Liepard's still on the field because of that Focus Sash, and Kyogre is in really close knockout range. That was a really unlucky turn for Michael.
Yeah, the one thing he really wanted to hit on the field there was Gengar's substitute. He does need to get Gengar's substitute out, because while it's up there, he's free to start attacking. We've seen it's got Sludge Bomb, so it can do huge damage to Whimsicott. Probably very sizable damage to the Kyogre as well, and at least get it in range for the burn, if not, knock it out. So
yeah,
the Gengar is safe to put on that pressure, and I really like this pick of substitute on Gengar from Adib. We've not seen it very often. We didn't see it from, you know, the players at Worlds who took Gengar, so that kind of changing it up is definitely paying dividends for him here, I think.
Definitely. Moonblast from Whimsicott onto the Gengar, trying to break that sub. Will it be able to break it? It does not. Kyogre protecting this turn. It actually looks like Adib double targeted that Kyogre, so no damage this turn. Kyogre left in the red.
Yeah, and even though he wants to get rid of it, I feel like double targeting it may have been a bit brash, maybe trying to close out this game. Whimsicott does manage to get, you know, a little bit of damage down, trying to see if Moonblast will obviously break the substitute on Gengar's side of the field, but it's just not enough because it resists it with that poison typing. So again, I mean, we didn't really get anything. Obviously, Michael burned his Protect, but Adib is still in that very strong position with the substitute up on Gengar, and Lipard just on the field being Lipard.
Yeah, he not only burned his Protect, he burned a turn of Tailwind as well.
Yeah, he doesn't get to capitalize on his own Tailwind, which is a bit of a problem. And he hasn't been able to get Safeguard up yet, so if he can get rid of this Whimsicott before Safeguard comes out, then of course, if Lipard's still around, clinging on with that Focus Sash, it'll be able to throw out Swagger.
Yeah, so Gengar making a pretty good read there, going for a Protect. Liepard going for that Swagger into the Kyogre, so it has a 50% chance of attacking this turn or just not really doing anything. Moonblast into that protected Gengar, and Kyogre will hit itself in confusion. It does survive, but the burn damage will knock it out.
Yeah, Adib capitalizing on the fact Safeguard wasn't up. Obviously it would have been nice to do some damage, but he does capitalize and he does get what Swagger gets, which is confusion hits. So, you know, both players haven't really been switching very much, and even though Michael's now down a Pokemon, he could still be in a position to potentially do some damage here.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to almost Whimsicott versus Liepard when you think about it, because both these Pokemon have been allowing these trainers to sort of disrupt their opponent's strategies, and I think right now, even though Whimsicott is faster and it's still at full health, I think Liepard is still sort of controlling the speed of this game. So if Michael wants to throw momentum back in his favor, I think he really needs to start thinking about how he uses his Whimsicott to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, and I feel like the Whimsicott, there's a lot of pressure on the Whimsicott to Safeguard now, so it'll be interesting to see if he goes for that this turn, even though he could be putting out offensive pressure with something like a Moonblast.
Yeah, so we are going to see Kangaskhan fake out that Liepard for the knockout. Whimsicott is going to move next. It goes for a Safeguard, interestingly enough, so Gengar will not be able to Will-O-Wisp the Kangaskhan at all, which is exactly what Adib played for.
Yeah, fantastic turn there for Michael. He manages to prevent his Kangaskhan getting burned. Obviously, that's a big thing. We saw in Game 2 that the Kangaskhan got burned and wasn't able to do enough. He also gets rid of the Lipard, which was setting up for the Yveltal with Swagger. So, I think actually a fantastic turn for Michael. Not only does he level up the Pokemon count, he does, you know, get all the things he needs, and he prevents Adib from playing his game. The only concern is, you know, there is, of course, the substitute up on Gengar still, and he still needs to get rid of it. Maybe, though, with the Dark Aura coming out from Yveltal, Kangaskhan can actually capitalize on it himself. It's going to be able to Sucker Punch the first hit to get rid of the substitute, and then the second hit to do damage to Gengar and potentially prevent it from obviously setting up another substitute.
Yeah, I think this situation, sometimes we'll see trainers actually switch out their Pokemon that has the substitute, just knowing that it's more valuable for that Pokemon to come back in later than it is for it to have the substitute now. We do not see Adib do that. We see Whimsicott moving first with that Tailwind, Kangaskhan with that Sucker Punch into the Gengar, so the first hit will break the substitute. The question is what will happen with the second hit. It does a massive amount of damage, does not quite get the knockout. We're going to see Gengar go for a Sludge Bomb onto Kangaskhan, so completely ignoring that Whimsicott. Foul play from that Yveltal most likely, yep, into that Kangaskhan for the knockout.
Yeah, I think Michael got the right idea there. He knew he needed to break the substitute. I think maybe some slightly safer play could have done him better there. But, you know, he does get the Gengar substitute broken and a huge amount of damage down. And we do see him bring out the Giratina to finish up this game. So it's going to be kind of tough for him, obviously. You know, it is facing down the Yveltal. It's going to be really hard for Giratina to punish now, although there is Tailwind up.
There is Tailwind. Yveltal going for a Sucker Punch. It's not going to deal any damage. Moonblast from that Whimsicott into the Yveltal brings it down to half health, just like we saw in Game 1. Again, we also see the Citrus Berry reveal. Really curious what this Giratina is going to do because, you know, okay, so we know that it's still the slowest thing on the field despite the Tailwind, which is a little bit alarming, I think, for Michael. Whimsicott taking that Sludge Bomb, holding on with its Focus Punch, and we see a Will-O-Wisp from the Giratina into the Yveltal.
Yeah, we knew that something was up, of course, when It didn't manage to connect with the Sucker Punch, so he does get a very good turn. He manages to burn the Yveltal and limit the Sucker Punch damage when he does go for an attack. So I think that's a good turn. Obviously, Whimsicott now just clinging on. Whimsicott may be able to just land another Moonblast though, which is going to be good for him.
Yeah, definitely. I think Whimsicott is probably in a really good position right now. It's just going to come down to, what's going to happen with Gengar. I think if Michael can knock that Gengar out, he has a shot of pulling this back in his favor, but it's not looking that good.
Yeah, it's been really all about the Gengar in these past 2 games. It's been pretty much the Mega Gengar show. We saw it in Game 2 throughout the burns, and then in Game 3 here, it's just kind of controlled what's going on with things such as the substitute, putting the pressure on, really drawing the attention to itself there to get the substitute broken. And I think that may be the secret here.
Yeah, Gengar protecting this turn. We see another Moonblast into that Yveltal, who is knocked out. We're not going to see it attack this turn, which gives Giratina the perfect opportunity to use that Shadow Force move to remove it from the field and deal damage to either Giratina or whatever else Adib has, apparently the Kyogre, next turn.
Yeah, I think this is actually, there may be the Giratina comeback on here, obviously. There's no Protect available for Gengar when you're going to get Shadow Forced, and I don't know if Michael's pretty good at eyeballing the scale, but, we may see that the Gengar on a deep side of the field doesn't have enough to throw out the substitute, so that may be getting knocked out. We do see as well the speed tier could be interesting. If it reappears from Shadow Force after the Kyogre, it could actually be quite tough for the Kyogre to do damage to it.
Definitely. I'm really curious to see what Whimsicott is going to do in this position, because honestly, I think it comes down to a combination of what the Whimsicott does and how Adib decides to play this next turn. We know that Giratina is guaranteed to get the Shadow Force off, so I don't think that's really going to play in as much to, what's going to happen and who's going to win this game. But yeah, let's just see.
Yeah, anything that Whimsicott can do now is good, and keeping itself safe with the Protect, I'm going to say is good.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Whimsicott protects itself, does not take a Sludge Bomb. Giratina moves next and uses the Shadow Force to deal damage to Kyogre. It does a massive amount of damage. We will see that Origin Pulse connect with Giratina. It's all going to come down to how much will that do. It hardly does anything.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting target as well by Michael. I would have liked to see the Shadow Force go in towards the Gengar. Maybe he's a little bit worried after what happened in Game 2. But if he targets down the Gengar, it's just going to substitute away the Shadow Force. So instead, he goes to do huge damage to this Kyogre. Does about 45%, which is definitely going to help him. But interesting to note that it reappeared from Shadow Force before the Kyogre moved. So probably a Kyogre that's not trained in any speed, just nice and bulky, which is why it took that Shadow Force very, very comfortably there. And he'll be able to vanish before the Kyogre, but he's still going to be vanishing after that Gengar move, so it's going to be tough for him to get through this. Obviously Gengar can only hit it with Sludge Bomb, so not able to put down the pressure with something like Shadow Ball.
Whimsicott going for a Safeguard, Gengar going for a Substitute, and it gets it. It's left with just a little bit of health. Whimsicott dodging the Origin Pulse. So we're only going to see Giratina take damage. It brings it down to half health, but it's still free to Shadow Force. It's still free to attack either of these Pokemon this turn. I don't know about you, but I think Whimsicott dodging that Origin Pulse was huge.
Yeah, that was a really big dodge for Whimsicott. It does mean it's able to do maybe a little bit of chip damage with that Moonblast, and if you look at the amount of damage Shadow Force Kyogre did to Kyogre before, if it gets hit by a Moonblast and then a Shadow Force, maybe there's a knockout there. And Gengar is going to struggle, I think, to knock out this Giratina. Obviously, if it had Shadow Ball, it doesn't, but we've seen the 4 moves. We've seen Sludge Bomb, Will-O-Wisp, Substitute, and Protect. So it's going to be difficult, definitely, for it to do something useful.
Yeah, so Whimsicott uses its last turn on the field to set up Tailwind, so Giratina will be able to move prior to either of these Pokemon attacking, I believe. We're going to see that Kyogre, use Ice Beam. Again, it's not going to connect because of the Shadow Force, and here it comes. There's the Shadow Force. It goes into the Gengar, and it will cause the Substitute to fade. So both Gengar and Kyogre are left on the field, completely unprotected, and it's just going to be mind games from here on out.
Yeah, I do like getting I don't know if the Tailwind was such the play there. Obviously, he's only going to be able to help his Giratina here. Maybe Giratina has the Shadow Sneak. Even if it does, we're not going to see it. We're just going to see it get hit by a Sludge Bomb right now.
We're going to see it get hit by a Sludge Bomb. It doesn't deal a lot of damage. We're going to see it remove itself from the field once again with that Shadow Force, once again dodging that Ice Beam. So I think it's safe to say we're going to see Giratina probably target that Kyogre this turn, and it's all going to come down to, can Shadow Force get that knockout? Because if not, it's taking an Ice Beam to the face, which I don't know about you, but Giratina being part Dragon type probably would not appreciate that. The Shadow Force goes into the Kyogre and it gets the knockout. So I believe that will seal the deal for this game in Michael's favor. That was nuts.
That was insane.
That was absolutely nuts.
To see the roll, and I was thinking a minute ago, I was like, if only he'd got the Moonblast off on it. Obviously, that's not important. We do see the Giratina on this turn is going to disappear for the Shadow Force. The Gengar is on minimal hit points, so the next turn, doesn't matter what Gengar does, it doesn't have enough to substitute. So Michael ekes out the win, even in the face of defeat. He manages to get the Shadow Forces into the right targets, do enough damage at the right time, and it looks like he's going to take this game and move on to 2-0 in this tournament today.
Oh, that's excellent. I mean, I really like how this game showed the strengths of Giratina. We're even going to see it break through Protect right now. So, you know, it's such a mind game Pokemon that I think a lot of trainers really kind of overlooked at the beginning of the season. I'm really glad to see it being used in such good hands today.
Yeah, and, you know, we said at the beginning of the set as well, and it was actually a tough matchup.
It was a very tough matchup
to get through. So I think it's really exciting here to see actually eke out. I mean, obviously game one went well, but to see it eke out a win is even better for it. So I'm excited for Michael. I'd love to follow his journey throughout the day. Love to see how he does. You know, if we can pick him up in Top Cut tomorrow or later on today,
that would be awesome.
I want to see what Giratina can do against other teams. You know, are there other teams it struggles against or other teams it really does well against? So I'm going to be following Michael. I don't know about you.
I'll definitely be following Michael, but I'll also follow Adib. You know, he played really well. He knew his win condition perfectly that last game. It's just, you know, when the RNG decides to give you a more favorable damage roll, then that's just what happens.
I like what
there.
Adib did in every game as well. You know, Adib definitely played his own thing in every single game, and we saw him every time try and set up a turn in advance with the swagger, even if it goes into the safeguard. A lot of players wouldn't swagger, they wouldn't see the benefit in it just because the safeguard was up. So to see them get that attack boost and then capitalize on it, I love the way Adib plays that game, going back and forth. He's planning out the whole game, which is what top players do, and I believe Adib can bounce back from this loss in an early round.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, Liepard and Yveltal are such perfect partners for each other. I really hope we see some more leads like that going into the rest of today. So that being said, we are taking a lunch break right now. Unfortunately, we will not be doing player interviews for the time being. We're trying to figure out our camera battery situation.
That's a fun one. It's one of my favorite technical challenges that I've ever faced.
So if anybody happens to know anybody in the Orlando, Florida area who has a Canon Rebel T1i AC adapter, or, you know, wants to help us out, we will love you forever. But yeah, until then, we're going to take some time to charge our batteries. We're also going to charge ourselves with some lunch.
Stomach batteries?
Stomach batteries. So yeah, we'll be back. Do we know when the lunch break will end? We don't know when the lunch break will end, so just keep an eye on Twitter, keep an eye on stream. We're guessing it's going to be about an hour. We don't have to worry about data usage, so we'll keep the stream up in that time. So thank you guys all for watching. We'll be back with round 3 in a while. Okay.